Wake up, commute, work, commute. Wake up, commute, work, commute. Wake up again, commute again, work again, commute again. Still waking up, commuting, working, commuting. For the last time, wake up, commute, work, commute. Then, the weekend. This was my life in a nutshell, all throughout my 20s. An endless, mundane cycle in the pursuit of a paycheck. I was trading no control of my time 5 days a week to only have control of my time 2 days a week on the weekends. There was no obvious alternative path to me, and the deeper I leaned into my corporate existence, the more stuck I felt. It was an empty feeling, like being dropped into the middle of the Grand Canyon with no map and no one coming to rescue you. Ultimately, I resigned myself to accepting that this would be the fate that I would suffer. 40 years, spending the majority of my time, some of the best years of my life, waking up, commuting, working, and commuting again, just to help make a corporation that cares not at all about me a little more profitable. The same fate that so many others suffer. And I rationalized all this by telling myself, I'm doing what I was supposed to be doing, what so many others would be grateful for, and so I should be grateful too. But the truth is, I was rarely happy, mostly stressed out, and always anxious. I let my career in corporate compliance at large financial institutions consume my identity. The person who was once a musician and songwriter, physical fitness junkie, and avid hiker no longer existed. I was now a stock fraud investigator and compliance training director. I felt like I was having an identity crisis. I spent on average 50 to 60 hours a week doing things that didn't fulfill me, and hardly any time doing the things that did. I thought if I just leaned in harder into my career, made more money, and climbed the corporate ladder, I would finally be happy and all my anxiety and depression would just magically disappear. So that's what I did. I worked harder and smarter than everyone around me. I led and challenged effectively. I built and implemented systems that saved the company money and created efficiencies that are still used today by the firm. I did absolutely everything I could to stand out and stand apart from my colleagues. And guess what? It worked. I was promoted to director of my company just after my 30th birthday, which made me the youngest director at the firm at the time, and I had quadrupled my income over the course of a short few years. But was I happy? Was I less anxious, less depressed? Nope. In fact, the exact opposite was true. I was more anxious and more depressed than I ever recalled, and I normalized experiencing extreme levels of stress day in and day out. What's even worse was that this relentless pursuit of money and title almost killed me 3 times. And I mean that quite literally. The first time was when I was driving home late at night after a long day at the office, and I fell asleep at the wheel. I veered into oncoming traffic on a highway and crashed headfirst into another vehicle. Here's the actual photo from the crash site of my car, absolutely wrecked. I consider myself very lucky to have only sustained minor injuries, as were the passengers in the other vehicle, but I could have been dead right then and there, or even worse, I could have killed somebody else. I still ended up being sued by the passengers of the other vehicle, which ended up getting settled outside of court. My car insurance covered the settlement, and after learning the amount of the settlement, I've happily paid my car insurance ever since. The second time came a few years later, when I made a visit to my doctor for my routine annual physical. I'll never forget my doctor's face as she took my blood pressure reading and immediately recoiled back, staring at me in blank concern and horror. She then snapped out of it and proceeded to tell me something was wrong with her machine, so she took a blood pressure reading a second time. Same result. In so many words, she told me my blood pressure was so elevated that I was at a high risk of having a stroke at any moment. This was not the news someone at 30 years old ever wants to hear. Nor was it fun to have to buy my own blood pressure machine and take a reading multiple times every day and keep track of it in a log. I didn't have a stroke, thankfully, but that was the second strike. And now here's the third strike, a couple years after that. I didn't realize how bad my anxiety and depression had become, because to all appearances, I was a top performer at work, and for the most part, holding things together really well at home. I guess I had an uncanny ability of concealing how I was truly feeling internally to the outside world. But my mental health had gotten so bad by this point that it almost felt like my life was on autopilot, and there was this perpetual fog all around me. I was in the sunken place. I rarely felt present or aware of my surroundings, and on one particular morning, I was crossing the street near my office building on my morning commute into work. This is a very busy highway in a densely populated metro area. By the time I crossed the street, I realized something pretty terrifying. I had never looked to see whether there were any cars coming, or if I even had the green light to walk across to the other side. It wasn't an intentional act to harm myself, I just simply was not there.
And though I can hide my cold gaze, and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there.
It felt like a miracle to me, and had it been just a minute earlier or later that I had crossed, the twist of fate may have turned out differently. This is the moment I knew my path was unsustainable, and had I kept going on this way, I was either going to die very young or, best case scenario, be miserable the rest of my life. As that was the third strike, I pulled myself out of the game. I took a leave of absence from my job while I got treatment for my mental health. It was a very scary and uncertain time for me. I went full stop from 100 miles per hour to yanking the emergency brake and screeching to 0 miles per hour. I had only known one gear for so long, and I was worried that this would potentially be the end of everything I had worked so hard to accomplish. And to make things even scarier for me, my mental, emotional, and physical health were all in the gutter. But to my astonishment, the treatment I received helped enormously. Over time, I was able to manage my stress and anxiety to a healthier baseline and ultimately receive the clarity that changed my whole perspective. It was the clarity that I was going to be okay. Everything was going to be okay. I mentioned how throughout my journey I quadrupled my income, but I didn't quadruple my expenses. In fact, I slashed my expenses by cutting out all the things that didn't serve me in any meaningful way, and I had paid off all my debt. I had managed to sustain a savings rate of over 50% on average, which peaked at around 75%. And because I didn't squander all those earnings, I had something to show for it all. I was what the financial independence community likes to call coast-fi, which essentially means I had saved so much money at such a young age that with time, those investments will compound and I'll never need to contribute another dollar to my retirement plan. I wasn't quite fully financially independent yet and able to never work again if I chose not to, but if I only make enough money to cover my expenses each year, my investments and net worth will only continue to grow. And that took immense pressure off my plate and allowed me to ultimately pivot away from a career that was unsustainable and comfortably explore other opportunities. Had I not pursued financial independence along my journey, I would have felt trapped like most others who do need the paycheck or benefits in order to provide for their family and pay the bills. You know, I always knew pursuing financial independence and growing my wealth would serve me well someday. I just never knew it would have given me such tremendous flexibility at such a young age. I also gained the clarity that financial independence is not a destination, but rather an endless journey of growth, opportunity, and optionality. And you get to enjoy all the experiences that come with all of those things along the way. Don't sleepwalk away some of the best years of your life. You can save and invest for your future and enjoy the here and now. And you don't need to have the generally accepted 25 to 30 times your annual expenses saved and invested to feel financially free. The moment you have 1, 2, or even 3 years of annual expenses saved and invested, you already have a greater degree of optionality and financial freedom than someone who doesn't. If you've been subscribed to my channel and following my prior videos, I appreciate you if you're still here with me. And hopefully this video explains where I've been and why I've needed to take some time to myself to focus on my health. If you're struggling with your own mental health, just remember that you are a complex human with all sorts of past experiences and thoughts and emotions, and getting help when you need it doesn't make you weaker. It can only actually make you stronger. I'm hoping to get back to making more content for you guys because I genuinely enjoy being creative and producing videos. I also want to start making videos that are more real and transparent. I plan on possibly sharing more about where I'm investing my money and tracking my net worth progress with you all. So if that's the kind of content you want to see every now and then, stick around and let me know in the comments. Stay hungry, stay safe, and I'll catch you guys next time.